Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of CleanTechnica's news broadcast. My name is Hanan, I'm your host, and this week we might actually exceed the usual time slot for the news show because there's more news than ever. So, let's get to it. Volvo plus Waymo Autonomy partnership. So this is a pretty unexpected turn of events because a few weeks ago I mentioned how Volvo seems to be flip-flopping between autonomous AI companies. First they split their current autonomy division in two, sold off half, made the other a separate company, and then a week later partnered with some other AI company. And then 2 weeks after that they also decided to partner up with a compact LiDAR company. And now this week Volvo is partnering up with Waymo to make robo-taxis. The press release, it was a bit vague. The things that they did mention is that yes, this is a partnership and that they will be integrating Waymo's autonomous tech into Volvo vehicles, but only for robotaxis, so level 4 autonomy only. Perhaps all those other AI companies that Volvo is partnering up with will be for level 2 and level 3 then? It remains a bit of a mystery, but for those of you who have been keeping score, it looks like a bit of a mess. Intel and Mobileye by Moovit. That was actually only the first autonomy story of 5. For some reason, it was a really crazy week for autonomy. And the second story is about a company called Mobileye, also known as one of the companies that tried to tell Elon Musk that something is impossible and was shown the door. Tesla actually used to work with Mobileye before they moved on to hardware too. But they had a falling out in 2016, and afterwards Mobileye was actually bought by Intel. And now that AMD is finally giving Intel a serious smackdown when it comes to the consumer and prosumer processor market, as well as Apple jumping ship, all of Intel's side hustles are suddenly becoming ever more crucial. And so this week, Intel, for Mobileye, has bought a company called Moovit for $900 million. Moovit is a mobility-as-a-service company. Basically, if Mobileye is the self-driving hardware and software, then Moovit will be the robotaxi Uber app for ordering and deploying the fleet. Right now, they assist people with planning trips by combining a ton of data on public transport all over the world. And a fun fact, both companies actually come from Israel. Phantom AI and Renesas offering ADAS on the cheap. ADAS, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, is basically a feature that a lot of higher-end vehicles get to prevent crashes. It's a level 2 autonomy feature that basically stops the car automatically to prevent a crash. Currently, it's pretty expensive and two companies are partnering up, Phantom AI and Renesas. They're going to try to make a cheaper ADAS that will be available for more affordable vehicles. And in their own words, they are democratizing the use of advanced driver assistance systems to reduce accidents, save lives, and make driving more enjoyable while delivering tomorrow's self-driving technology. In the past, automakers needed to spend a lot of money either trying to integrate ADAS into their systems and certifying it, or buying an external media control unit and integrate that, both of which are expensive either because of the R&D involved or because the bill of materials increases and the performance of the vehicle decreases. In this case, Phantom AI makes the AI and Renesas makes the chip. The idea is an SoC, a system on a chip based solution that any automaker can integrate into their product without too much effort. It seems a pretty good idea. I wonder how many automakers will take them up on it. Seems pretty lucrative. Amazon buys Zoox. So it seems that on CleanTechnica we have only mentioned Zoox in passing and haven't actually written any dedicated articles about them. They're a notable company that's also developing self-driving autonomous technology and is valued a little bit over $3 billion. Well, now we won't forget it as easily because Amazon just bought it for $1.3 billion. Now, what Amazon wants the company for, that's the real question here. There are those who suspect Amazon may want it for their cashierless stores, better tracking, better awareness for the AI. Some speculate it has something to do with delivering packages. But so far, the only company exclusively making vans for Amazon is Rivian, and even then, Amazon invested less money in Rivian than it spent buying this company. Elon Musk was quick to call Jeff Bezos a copycat. Personally, I have a different theory. You see, Amazon said that they're going to be leaving Zoox alone to do its own thing, and I think that Amazon understands something really well, is the fact that if they later on change their mind and they want to jump into the EV market and be successful, that's doable. However, if they want to jump into the autonomy sector late in the game, yeah, that's just not going to work. I think they understand this. They bought this company to keep their options open for the future. Although it's not really great timing because right now there is a lot of scrutiny over Amazon, over their size, the fact that they don't pay taxes, the fact of how they treat their workers during the COVID crisis. Yeah, not great timing, Amazon. NVIDIA plus Mercedes autonomy partnership. Then the final autonomy partnership story for this week. Mercedes and NVIDIA are also partnering up. NVIDIA's technology for autonomy is going to be integrated into Mercedes vehicles starting 2024. And this may be the most interesting news story out of them all this week because Tesla, before starting to make their own hardware 3 chip, was also making use of NVIDIA's technology, and for good reason. Though the chips that NVIDIA has released lately were overly power hungry to actually be useful in commercial applications like the AGX Pegasus. NVIDIA just added some graphics cards to beef it up, but the power requirements are so enormous that it's not a practical product. Their next generation Orin chip was unveiled in 2019, but won't be available for several more years. Tesla had no other options, and I fully expect to see their hardware 4 by 2023. In any case, with Orin, NVIDIA's power requirement issues should be overcome by 2024 when Volvo launches these vehicles with NVIDIA's autonomous tech in them. Now, what's strange is that for some reason, this autonomy is going to be limited to level 2 and level 3. Though personally, I think there's a big chance that, somewhere down the road, a couple of years later, they'll announce a continuation of work to level 4 and higher. But the thing that really matters here is the fact that this will enable them to start catching up to Tesla. I mean, by 2024, yes, they will be very far behind, but they can actually start catching up because fleet learning is the one single most important thing to actually reach an end goal and not get stuck halfway. I mean, we obviously won't know where Waymo will be by 2024, but unless they also announce some radical new changes, radical new plans to either integrate their technology into level 2, level 3 vehicles, or make some huge investments to try to automate bit by bit parts of the US to actually also get more fleet learning going. Unless they do that, they're not going to catch up to Tesla. They're not going to get very far. Siberia, new temperature record. The Siberian heatwave story just refuses to die down. If anything, it's intensifying. Now, the story started off with the fact that in Siberia, there was a record temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, where it should have been around 2 or 3, and the previous record 40 years ago being somewhere around 15 degrees. And then, a week or two later, we realized that, hey, this heat wave is going on for a really long time and is not dying down as it should have, which is really unusual as well, making things worse. And then this week, well, we've reached a new level because a record has been broken again when part of the Arctic Circle hit 37 degrees Celsius, or basically just a little bit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Even Florida only got that hot once on record. And let me remind you, Florida is not part of the Arctic Circle. Then, to make matters worse, there's also another big issue on the horizon, that is forest fires. When it comes to forest fires, 2019 was a record year. The operating word of that sentence being was. 2020, not even halfway through, has just surpassed 2019 when it comes to forest fires. In fact, in the last 18 months, more CO2 was released from forest fires than in the previous 16 years combined. Now let me ask you, what is the point of planting trees to help with climate change, absorb CO2, if they're just going to burn anyways? Of course, that's not going to be the case all around the world, but it is for a lot of places, and that list of places is growing. The Mediterranean is getting drier. This story might not be as hot in the news as the one about Siberia, but it is definitely worth our attention, and it's all about the Mediterranean. You see, it's getting drier, which might be great for all the tourists going there on vacation to relax in the sun, but is detrimental to the farmers and to the vegetation there. And the thing is, it shouldn't be happening. You see, with climate change, with things heating up, humidity should also be going up. However, and while that's the case everywhere in the world, it's not the case in the Mediterranean, and we didn't know why. It shouldn't have been happening. So a researcher from MIT and a researcher from the University of Morocco got together, and for the first time ever, we have an answer, or a possible answer, to this question. It's actually really interesting, and let me just start it off with a quote. It just happened that the geography of where the Mediterranean is and where the mountains are impacts the pattern of airflow high in the atmosphere in a way that creates a high pressure area over the Mediterranean. So to break it down, that high altitude air pattern, which is actually increasing in speed because of climate change, is the jet stream. And so what they're saying is that the mountains cause waves in the jet stream airflow pattern, creating both high and low pressure zones. And high pressure is obviously linked to dry weather, clear skies, where low pressure is linked to more humidity and a higher chance of rain, which is actually how a barometer, if you've ever had one at home, estimates the chance of rain. This wave of air happens to create a high pressure zone above the Mediterranean. And then there's also the fact that the land around the Mediterranean, general land, is going to warm up quicker than the ocean, creating a greater temperature differential, which in this area will create clockwise winds that will interact in a specific way with the high altitude winds to make the pressure even higher. Now, all kinds of climate simulations, they all agree that the Mediterranean is going to get drier, but nobody really understood why until now. And that's where this final quote comes in. We document from the observed record of precipitation that this eastern part has already experienced a significant decline in precipitation. The researchers predict that northern Africa and the eastern Mediterranean will be most severely affected by this, which is pretty terrible considering that it's already a pretty politically unstable region. So yes, we can expect more wars, more famine, more refugees, and in general, a lot more suffering. Minnesota sues Big Oil. So there are 3 fossil fuel stories this week. None of them are major or groundbreaking, but they're worth knowing about. So I'm going to go through them really quickly. The first, the state of Minnesota is suing ExxonMobil, the American Petroleum Institute, and a couple of companies owned by Koch Industries. Now, while no lawsuit like this has ever succeeded before, this one might be different because they're actually focusing on fraud protection statutes, and with proof that these companies purposely misinform people about climate change, this might actually give them an edge. BP's $18 billion write-off. The second story is about BP because they've been all over the news with the fact that they're making this enormous $18 billion write-off, acknowledging climate change, yada yada, other things they've said before because they're such do-gooders. Yeah, well, let me just clarify what's actually going on here. So first off, it's important to note that their intangible assets alone are already worth $130 billion, and you have yet to add the 15 billion or so in intangible assets to that. Also, it's important to note that they never said $18 billion write-off. They said $13 to $17.5 billion write-off. Then, so basically what you get here is an 8.9 to 12% write-off. So it's not nothing, but it's not that much. I mean, they're still going to continue drilling, exploration. They're still going to continue operating. They're shutting down a little bit. And of course, none of this has anything to do with the fact that oil made huge losses in 2020. No, guys, it's all about climate change. You better believe it. Nevada to adopt California's fuel standards. Then some news from Nevada. The state has announced plans to adopt California's fuel efficiency standards. So far, 14 states and the District of Columbia have adopted the fuel standards. Minnesota and New Mexico had also announced their intentions to join in September. Though from the moment that Nevada announced this till the moment that it's actually going to be implemented, well, it's going to be a couple of years until all the paperwork and all the legislation comes through for that. Autopilot traffic lights update. So a little while back, Tesla rolled out an update to Autopilot that would let it automatically stop in front of a traffic light. The only thing is, if the traffic light is green, it would also still stop at it unless the user overrides. Now, this week they also released a new update for that, but only for the US, where if there is another car in front of you and it doesn't slow down for the green traffic light, then neither will Tesla. Monkey see, monkey do, basically. However, if there is no car in front of you, there will be a red line on the screen that you would have to press before the car will actually go on its own. It was again well-known Tesla hacker Green that first brought this to light. It's something he found in the updated manual that most people have not yet received. Triangulating Roadrunner's location. Tesla for some time has been developing its own battery cells that should allow it to perform multiple miracles simultaneously, from achieving terawatt-hours worth of factory production to increasing battery density, increasing safety, eliminating cobalt, and God knows what else. Well, until now we didn't know where that was taking place, and this week we actually got some information on that. And actually one of my 2 theories panned out. It was not on the 2nd floor of the Fremont factory, so I'd really wonder what's happening there now. But it was at another facility a 5-minute drive away from the main factory, kind of like the seat factory is. And we know this because Tesla submitted plans to expand the building. They basically want to add a floor, but not actually change the exterior dimensions. This is going to be a project that will take something like 3 months to complete. Currently, 300 people can work there, and after this change, the building will be able to accommodate up to 470 people. It's not huge, it's just a pilot line, but we do know where it is now. Tesla delays battery day. Continuing with the previous story, Elon Musk announced in a tweet that Tesla's battery day will be postponed again, this time to September 15th. It will most likely take place in Fremont, it will be combined with the shareholder meeting, and it will include a tour of the cell production system. Cybertruck on display. So this week, the Cybertruck was on display at the Peterson Automotive Museum, and some interesting details have come to light. You see, there are actually some subtle differences between one on display and the one shown on stage and was used for test drives during the unveiling. First of all, the exterior looks more glossy, while the other one looks more matte. Here, I overlaid a snippet, I tried to place it as best I could, of the unveiling on top of the one at the Peterson Museum, and you can see it's more glossy, the one was more matte. Then the other difference is a couple of cameras, one at the front right here. Sorry, I don't have a proper image to show it. And the two cameras at the rear right here and here. The side cameras we already knew about. They're located right here and they're still there. Leaving a few big questions. Is Tesla's suite of usual cameras located here, like it is in other Teslas? We know the rear mirror is a screen, so there is at least one cable coming from there. This part of the windshield is darkened, so we can't see it. Then another question, no B-pillar camera? Well, I do have a theory that would answer some of the questions. See, Autopilot can function without B-pillar cameras, and technically they could be testing out Autopilot for now, even without them, and they'll be added later in the production version. Then those side cameras, those are needed because they're replacing the side mirrors, so those are definitely already there. Because the rear view is a screen, there must be another rear camera in the back somewhere higher up, maybe somewhere around here. Then I also have a theory about the two cameras in the back. What if Tesla will introduce some kind of automatic tow hitch coupling functionality? That would be one hell of a feature. The new Ford F-150. Moving away from Tesla, but staying with pickups, Ford this week created quite a bit of media buzz with their new F-150. And so you might ask, why on earth would CleanTechnica report on a gas guzzler like that? Well, I actually got three pretty good reasons for you. First of all, they also announced a hybrid version. Second reason, in mid-2022, Ford is going to launch their electric F-150, and the way it looks is going to be very similar to the redesigned F-150 that they launched now. Then the third and final version, the Ford F-150, is iconic, and it may be the biggest competitor for Tesla's Cybertruck. Tesla's Blade Runner sci-fi truck might not be for everyone. That counts for the outside and the minimalistic inside. It seems Ford wanted to give the Cybertruck a real run for its money because design-wise, they basically made the absolute opposite of the Cybertruck while still integrating some really cool functionality. First off, we already knew that the Cybertruck can power some power tools, but can they also match or beat Ford's offer of 7.2 kilowatt worth of power for powering all kinds of things? It's an important question. Though I must say, if you are cutting a board on the back with a power tool, as Ford is showing here, not sure I'd want to stand there and breathe in all the fumes the F-150 is generating. I mean, that might be okay for like a minute or two in an emergency, but not for much longer than that. An issue that the Cybertruck doesn't have. The next thing that the F-150 offers are front seats that completely recline so you can sleep like in business class on a plane. They also thought people might want a nice flat surface to put down your laptop or your Big Mac order. Then there is storage under the rear seats. I know right now Tesla has some battery electronics on that spot, but with more dense Roadrunner batteries, maybe they can flatten that curve, pun intended. No, but really, that would be some really cool functionality. Under for example, the Model Y, the rear seats, I would love to be able to store camera gear there, for example. The interior is like the opposite of minimalism, yet it offers a 12-inch screen bigger than the 10-inch one you'll find in the Volkswagen ID.3, yet still smaller than Tesla's 15-inch screen in the Model 3 and Model Y. Though on the images, it doesn't look all that small. The instrument panel screen also looks big and dope. Ford is also promising full over-the-air updates and hands-off driving assist packages. They specifically mentioned sensors and a camera on the inside that will monitor the driver and make sure that the driver is actually paying attention. Now, to me, it seems like Ford had some kind of big meeting, and on the drawing board, they first put a list of mistakes Tesla made that they could fix, a list of cool functionality from Tesla that they could copy, and a list of things that would make the Ford F-150 the anti-Cybertruck but still look modern and cool. To me, it seems like they totally succeeded. The F-150 is definitely going to give the Cybertruck a run for its money, especially once the electric version of it comes out. I think they did pretty well. This is actually pretty impressive. I was not expecting to ever be praising an F-150, to be honest. But, they did some pretty cool stuff. Well done. Nissan Arya Unveil. Continuing with new vehicles, next up is Nissan, and they actually announced that they're going to be unveiling the production version of the Nissan Arya electric vehicle on July 15th. So save the date on your calendar. Up until now, we only had the concept, and now they're publishing a teaser image of the production version. When you make it brighter using Photoshop, you can see that the shape is practically the same, but when lined up, I had to play with perspective here, but I do see at least one difference, and that is in the back. It appears to be a bit lower here, and the rear wheel appears to be a bit more inside, but that could just be a mistake with the perspective. In any case, let's hope that Nissan doesn't disappoint, because they really need this with all of their current Gozen troubles and all their financial troubles. They definitely need to catch a break. Opel/Vauxhall's Mokka-E. Then the third vehicle unveiling is Opel/Vauxhall with their new all-electric Mokka. It looks alright, though as with all traditional automakers, it's never as good as the concept, but could be worse. The interior looks pretty cool, but we really need to start getting cars with bigger center consoles like Tesla. So let's get to the specs. It has a 50 kilowatt-hour battery, a 11 kilowatt AC charging system, a 100 kilowatt DC fast charging system, a range of 322 kilometers WLTP, an electronically limited top speed of 150, and an estimated acceleration of 8.6 seconds. It seems to be a really good vehicle, especially when you, well, maybe not when you compare it to a Tesla, which is obviously a lot more expensive, but if you compare it to the Volkswagen ID.3, the cheaper and the middle version, it's definitely a good middle ground that doesn't cost as much. There's a lot of fuss being made about the ID.3, but this actually looks like a really great vehicle. 2021 Jaguar I-Pace. Before we move away from new vehicles, there is still one little vehicle refresh out there, and that's the 2021 Jaguar I-Pace. It seems they fixed everything minor, which basically means they didn't fix the range. They didn't fix over-the-air updates, except for maps, navigation maps, those do update, but the vehicle itself, nope. The biggest change is the bigger 12-inch instrument cluster behind the wheel. That looks pretty cool. In total, they still have the same 3-screen design, if you don't count the 2 buttons with mini screens. The 2 center screens are still 10 inches and 5 inches. You can now actually pan and zoom in on things like you would on any normal smartphone or tablet. I'm shocked that in order to get multi-touch, you actually need to get a whole new vehicle. So there's a redesigned UI, 4G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot with 20 gigabytes of data per month. Then the onboard charger on the base model has been upgraded from 7 to 11 kilowatt and adopted a feature Tesla uses, which is preheating the battery for better charging efficiency. The I-Pace now also has an allergen filter, but as far as we can tell, it's not a HEPA filter. Then the last upgrade is that it has some additional driver assistance technology. Wireless charger for I-Pace taxi in Oslo, Norway. You thought we were done with the I-Pace, didn't you? No, actually the I-Pace is part of another story this week. A company called Momentum Dynamics will be installing wireless chargers in taxi drop-off and pickup zones. It's embedded in the road, so it won't stick out. And the place can charge a vehicle between speeds of 50 to 75 kilowatt, although the system on the vehicle is limited to 50 kilowatt. Also, for some reason, the charging sessions are limited to 6 to 8 minutes. The wireless chargers will be installed in Jaguar I-Pace vehicles. This is part of Oslo's initiative to make all taxis emissions-free by 2024. The name of this program? Electricity. Although I'm fairly sure they actually want you to pronounce it as electricity. Bit of a strange name. The press release says that with this kind of technology, taxis can drive 24/7 without having to stop to charge. Volkswagen ID.3 first deliveries. So Volkswagen is supposed to start delivering ID3s to customers in September, though through a lottery, the first 150 ID3s will be handed over to some pretty lucky employees that work at 1 out of 3 possible Volkswagen plants. Now, whether they'll actually be able to keep the vehicle, that remains unclear, but in the meantime, they will for sure be testing the vehicles, giving feedback to Volkswagen and making sure that the ID3s are completely ready for real customers around September when they're supposed to get them. Volkswagen in-house software. So by now we should all be familiar with the Volkswagen ID3 software woes. I mean, it has even cost the CEO his position. Well, it turns out that 90% of that software was not developed in-house, something that Volkswagen actually wants to change. They actually want to hire 5,000 new engineers within the next 5 years and make them all work under the same roof to try to, create software for their vehicles. A very ambitious goal. One of our writers, Alex Voigt, he's actually an industry insider, he had a really good rant recently saying that Volkswagen can't expect automotive managers to understand how to run a software company if they can't even program a basic game like the one Elon did at the age of 12. Here's a quote from Christian Sanger, the person in charge of the software division at Volkswagen. Software develops its potential with the increasing number of vehicles. This applies to cost advantages, but also to learning from data. We have this scaling advantage on our side. First of all, that only works with machine learning applications like Tesla's Autopilot, but not with regular car functions. When a Tesla gets a shiny new feature, it's not because a computer computed something and came up with an idea. No, people are suggesting ideas on Twitter. Elon, for example, he likes to look at suggestions and implement them. That's how Tesla keeps adding cool new software features. The fact that this guy at Volkswagen made this kind of quote just shows that they really don't understand what they're doing. They're the middle management with software. They don't seem to know what's going on. I mean, the only thing that you can get from having more people use the software is more bug reports if you have like a good system that reports those, or maybe you can send out more surveys if you have more customers, but you're not going to get better software just because more people use it. That's not how this works. And equally important factor in this is also the hardware and how good that hardware is. It's not for nothing that Tesla's electronics are being compared to military-grade electronics that can only be found in an F-35, but for a tiny fraction of the price. There are cost advantages when it comes to economies of scale with hardware, but with software, not really. I mean, you can throw more money at the problem, get more people on it to get things done more quickly, or get better software, but that's basically it. Maybe it isn't the CEO that needed to be replaced, but the middle management in charge of software. Lyft 100% electric. Then the final quick story of today, Lyft announced that it would be 100% electric by 2035. Now this is not particularly fascinating. I mean, technically they could keep all their current drivers with gas cars, diesel cars on all the way until 2029, even December 31st, 2029, and just remove the remaining gas car vehicles the next day and be 100% electric by 2030. So really, this is not much of a risk for Lyft. I mean, first of all, Lyft does not own any vehicles, the drivers do. And, the drivers that are driving now or will drive in the next 10 years, next few years, they'll realize that if they want to keep doing this kind of work, or if they might one day want to do this kind of work, they'll need an electric car as their next car. People buy cars once every 10 to 15 years. It shouldn't be a problem. Lyft actually risks absolutely nothing at all by doing this. So it's not exactly an impressive statement to make. But hey, it's better than nothing and everything will help. It would be great if they actually start implementing more of that sooner, but we'll see what they actually do. And that was it for this week's news show. We hope that you guys liked it, and if you did, please consider sharing it on social media and with friends who care about clean tech. We'd really appreciate that. Also, giving this video a thumbs up would help us along. Now, most of the articles that we cover in the news show, we also write articles about, and sometimes in much more depth. And links to those can be found in the first comment down below. Other than that, I wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Till next time. See ya.